Sonic Racing CrossWorlds has gotta be one of the most impressive racing games of the modern day, and a large part of that is all thanks to the wonderful and creative tracks the game boasts. From returning tracks to Sonic Racing Previous, to a surprising amount of brand new tracks, we're gonna be ranking every single one of them from worst to best. I'll also be going over the CrossWorlds tracks in a separate video, so if you're looking forward to that, make sure to throw the like and subscribe button my way, as I have a lot more Sonic content in the works. But without further ado, my name is Dylonic, and today we are ranking every track in Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. Before we can get into the ranking, we need to lay down a few ground rules so you can get some better insight as to why certain tracks have certain placements. Number 1, this is all my opinion and my opinion alone. No duh. Number 2, I judge these tracks based on 3 major categories: track design, visuals, and how much fun I had playing. This is obviously a very subjective list, and I am very curious to hear what your favorite tracks are, so feel free to tell me how wrong I am in the comments below, because I know a lot of you are probably not gonna like my pick for the worst track in the game. Coming in dead last, we have Apatos, and it's not even a question as to why. The first time I found myself playing this game was during the open network test, which also had Apatos as a playable track, and I gotta say, this track is ass! Excuse my French, but I genuinely had no idea what the designers were thinking when making a track this narrow. It feels like they just poured in some elements from Sonic Unleashed without actually trying to make the track playable for a kart racer. What shocked me even more is when I looked online to see the fan reactions to the track, only to see people heavily enjoying what they played. Now, I'm not one to judge people for their taste in something I don't like. If you like garbage, go ahead and enjoy the garbage. I'm just gonna stay far, far away from it. But when I was looking online, I couldn't even find a genuine reason as to why this stage was good in the first place. In fact, the reason the track had been celebrated in the first place was because it was a meme pick. People loved using the monster truck at the very beginning of this race because with roads this narrow, it's almost a surefire hit that you'll get pretty much everybody. But my counter argument to that is, if your reason for liking a track in this game is purely for shits and gigs, then it's probably not a good track in the first place. I don't enjoy playing this game purely because I think a strat or two is funny. Of course, that's not to distract from anyone who genuinely enjoys this track. I know there's a lot of you out there. I'm gonna say this now so I don't have to say it later, but if you like something that I don't like, that's awesome. This is purely my list. But in saying that, I will say that Apatos is one of the only tracks in this game I can confidently say I do not like, which is honestly pretty impressive for a game that sports as many tracks as it does. 1, 2, or even 3 duds out of all of what this game has to offer is a small price to pay for salvation. You gotta break your neck.
It's just the way it is. I'm just a messenger.
Next up is Blizzard Valley. I was highly disappointed on how this track came out. It was a track that I didn't even know existed when going into the game, but one I was excited to play, as I'm always a big fan of winter-themed levels. But this one was simply not fun to play. The track design is whatever. It's not necessarily bad, it just feels pretty basic, but the entire track is placed on ice, which makes controlling your kart much harder than it needs to be. Not to mention the stage is kinda butt ugly. You could tell that this is Sonic Team's first game in Unreal Engine 5. I forgot to mention this in Apatos when we were talking about it, but that stage is also pretty ugly. All of the colors have been completely washed out and don't pop like they should. The lighting and texture work completely contrast with how the Sonic models are presented, which presents a very noticeable clash in art style. I'm sure the level would be fine if I used a gadget that allowed your car to control well on ice, but if I have to use a gadget to make the stage tolerable to play, then it's not really a good gimmick in the first place. Almost all of the gadgets in the game are used to help your kart perform better, and that gadget would be nice when you're off-roading or getting in an accident or something of the like, but being forced to use that gadget to make the level fun in the first place just feels wrong. This would honestly be at the bottom of the list if I didn't hate the ironic enjoyment people have of Apatos more. Next up is another level that was playable in the open network test, therefore a level that I'm very familiar with, and that's Metal Harbor. This is one of the first tracks that I ever saw when looking at promo material for this game, and let me just say, my eyes hurt a little after seeing it. This is one of those levels with a contrast in art style that is the most noticeable. It has the exact same issue as Sonic Frontiers, where everything around Sonic or whatever character you're playing as looks way too realistic for the cartoon animal running around around it. Complementing that with a very mediocre music track on a good day and level design that doesn't have a whole lot to offer, and you have a track that I can't really talk much about because of how unremarkable it is. There isn't a whole lot that I can say about this level, and until we get to the levels that I do really enjoy, we're going to be seeing a lot of repeating patterns with one another, as we've already seen with Metal Harbor: bland level design, poor music, and really ugly visuals. Something that I have noticed with the returning tracks from either a past Sonic game or a past Sonic Racer is that the visuals are incredibly subpar, and I think the biggest sin of this level is that nothing interesting is done with it. Yep, that is sure Spagonia from Sonic Unleashed. You definitely are driving on rooftops, just like the game. There's so many things that could be done with Rooftop Run that for some reason we just don't get to see in this level. To me, this feels like a level that Sega put in as filler, where they can just copy and paste houses everywhere to sell the look of Spagonia, yet do nothing with it at the exact same time. You don't climb up the giant clock tower, there are no balloons to be seen, no running inside or through buildings, you're just taking a brisk lap around the area, and it's unfortunately very unremarkable. I probably shouldn't be changing the rules midway through a video, but as I continue to write and talk about the music, I realize how it contributes to the overall experience when going through a track, as even though the tracks I have mentioned thus far are either mediocre or outright bad, there are many tracks in this game that I think help elevate the sense of speed and exhilaration that comes with racing in this game. I'm too lazy to go back and include it in the rules now, so we're just going to continue moving forward with that in mind. Crystal Mine is the last track I would consider even mediocre. Everything beyond this point are full of tracks that I enjoy, which is once again to the game's benefit, but man, Crystal Mine is probably the ugliest track in the game without a shadow of a doubt. When you hear the words crystal and mine in that order, I'm sure a lot of different things come to mind, but whatever visual slop Sega puked on the page is not what I had in mind. The track design and music aren't even that bad. If they were, this would be at the bottom of the ranks for sure, but it's just the visuals that keep it down so hard for me, as the only sense of color you get from this track is of the green and purple slabs of crystals that are equally distributed amongst the race, and just about everything is either gray or yellow, and it's just... It's so lame to look at. The rocks around you all carry this strange, same symmetry that a normal mine wouldn't have, and I'm not some kind of stickler about that, but it's by far the most basic and bland look you could possibly go for a mine setting. What could've, and probably should've, if we're being honest, have been the most visually interesting track in the game turned out to be the most boring by far. Mystic Jungle is the start of the tracks where I actually enjoy them. Unlike Market Street, this level does a lot to bring elements from every level in which you visit this area in Sonic Forces. Starting out with Aqua Road, which is a lot of fun to go through and not something I was really expecting when I was going through the level for the very first time. Then getting elements of both Luminous Forest and the casino area surrounding you, name of which I don't really care to remember. The only bad part about this stage is the visual contrast yet again between Unreal Engine 5 and the actual Sonic characters. Even at the very beginning of the race, you can see the lighting reflecting off the puddles at the starting line. This lighting and these textures simply don't fit in a Sonic game, and it looks so lame compared to a game where we could have had a consistent art style, and the level is so dark there's not even a skybox, which is quite lazy, but otherwise this level is pretty solid. Rainbow Garden is quite the interesting level and brings up something fun in this game, and I think this is a track that I would love to see translated into an actual Sonic game sometime in the future. This stage looks like it could be somewhere in Adabat from Sonic Unleashed, and I don't think we've ever seen a level like this in a Sonic game previous, which makes the concept so interesting to see want to played out in the future. Even with the relatively washed out colors of the game, this level still manages to pop out and shine amongst the rest. The track design is fun, the music is great, and I love the little cave area midway through the level. Not much more to say, it's a solid level. Moving on. I hate that I like Sand Road as much as I do, and that's purely because I'm petty as hell when it comes to sand levels. The track design is full of fun, great twists and turns in a big open dune area towards the end of the track. I've just never been a fan of desert aesthetics of any kind, but this level somehow manages to do a great job with its theme and do more than you would naturally expect, like going inside of a pyramid, crossing through an oasis, and the lake. You know, it's a good thing when I end up playing this level a lot more than I thought I would. I'm glad E Stadium is at this spot in the list. I never want the game to peak on its first level, and thankfully it doesn't, but that doesn't take away from the fact that this level is just plain fun. It's a great first impression to the game, and one of the most fun areas visually. The neon lights almost blinding you as you blaze past holograms of the racers in Green Hill Zone. Out of all the stadium levels that you see in Common Kart Racers, I would say East Stadium is one of my favorites. Not because it's the best level ever made, but I do think it does a great job as in introducing you to what this game has to offer, while not being an absolute walk in the park in its design. Coral Town has got to to be one of the most surprising additions to this game for me. The only gripe being how washed out the colors are for what could be such a vibrant and colorful level. This level takes very obvious inspiration from Yoshi's Valley on Mario Kart 64 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Of course, taking inspiration is never a bad thing as long as it stands on its own, which this level does just that. The course design allows you to take whichever path that you want, and even though I played it a lot of times, I still haven't found out what to be the most optimal path is. Even though it is one of the shorter tracks in the game in just about every aspect, this track offers something unique that you don't see a lot in this game in general, and I wish it was a little more saturated. I hate Pumpkin Mansion strictly because it took away the opportunity of bringing in Mystic Mansion from Sonic Heroes. Petty jokes aside, I can only think that this level is a direct inspiration from Luigi's Mansion, because otherwise I think Sega would have just used Hang Castle or Mystic Mansion. I don't necessarily understand the idea of creating a new Haunted Mansion idea when you have one right there from a go-to Sonic game, although a lot is done with this track that makes it very fun to go around. Using rings to go upside down on the ceiling and launch chandeliers at your opponents is very fun, and so is going into the sewers, with the final lap actually taking proper inspiration from Mystic Mansion. You have an invisible road lighting the way with fire, and to me that's just so fun. Ocean View is a track I sorely missed. I've had a lot of fun playing on this one. You know, I always love to see Sonic Heroes representation as it is one of my favorite Sonic games, and this level really reminded me at how hard Sega went with trying to make Seaside Hill the new Green Hill during the 2000s and 2010s. The only part I dislike about the level is the water section. That's not much of a major deal though. There's not really anything else I can say on it. The loop is fun, I guess. Speaking of Green Hill, does anyone else think Sega is trying to make Radical Highway the next Green Hill of the modern age? I know I just said they tried to do that with Seaside Hill, but I will say that there's no secret that we've been seeing a lot of Radical Highway representation recently, now that the fans who grew up on Sonic Adventure 2 have all grown up. If anything, it's definitely Shadow's Green Hill. We saw this stage so much in Shadow Generations, I'd be fine if I never saw it again for another 5 years, but I did enjoy this level a lot. Its minor branching paths help it to stand out on its own, and it's always fun trying to hit the rail grinding on the side of the location, plus the 2 large loops at the end. It definitely fits in the middle of this list, as there isn't a whole lot about it that I would call peak, but there's not really anything I dislike about it. It's just a good track all around. But you're not going to find the absolute heights of this game playing it. Colorful Mall is 100% a Coconut Mall ripoff, but I don't think I could ever get tired of seeing stages like this, especially considering that Sonic has never done it before, and it's a stage that I haven't played very much upon the actual release of the game, but it is one that I am very familiar with considering how often it was picked during the open network test. The track design isn't the craziest, and unfortunately neither is the music, but I find it very fun that the track is very open to play around in, as you can go on 3 different levels when you're halfway through the map, and even going through a mall movie theater in the 3rd lap. Add sliding through a food court at the end, this is a very fun level. I don't know how many times I've said it at this point, but Chow Park is a level I didn't think I'd have nearly as much fun with as I actually did, considering how popular the Chow are in real life and in the Sonic universe. This feels like a location that would actually exist, and even though the track design is just a giant boot, this level does a very good job at making you feel like you're on an actual Chow roller coaster zooming through the park, so it gets good points from me. Egg Expo is a level that was sorely needed in a game like this. The theming alone had to have it bumped over the halfway mark on this list. I am such a huge fan of what this level has to offer, and I am so glad Sega chose to go with the original theme over driving through already familiar ground like Eggman Land from Sonic Unleashed or something of the like. It feels like we're touring through an interactive museum of all of Eggman's greatest feats, going under his classic and iconic Wrecking Ball, and then immediately going through a short museum of his greatest and most common robots that you've fought over the years, even the robots from Sonic 06. Lead that into a flying section as you go under the Death Egg robot, only to watch everything come alive in the 3rd lap, and it's such a treat and adds a very fun gimmick to the level that still continues to set it apart from everything else that came before, as this is a great contender for the final level in the main cups of the game, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But beyond the standard Egg Grand Prix, there is a final Grand Prix that you can unlock called the Secret Grand Prix, which gives you a set of 3 tracks of the most recent Sonic games, and the one to come after Egg Expo is North Star Islands. Honestly, this level should be a lot higher after the amount of time I spent trying to perfect my run, as I spent multiple hours on a whim one night just trying to get the S rank. You travel through all the major areas, well, most of the major areas featured in Sonic Superstars, almost taking you on a visual history through the game, and the track design is so much fun. Its only drawback is the stage is pretty ugly. It uses assets straight from Sonic Superstars, and it doesn't even try to hide that fact, as everything manages to look relatively plastic and flat, which is the complete opposite problem from previous tracks, where everything looks too dynamic and realistic for these characters. But beyond that, this level is a ton of fun, and one that I keep coming back to on a regular basis. Coming in at number 7, this is the level that sold me on looking into this game in the first place, and that is Water Palace. I absolutely love just about everything this track has to offer. Everything about this level just clicked for me when I had gone through it the first time during the open network test. I hadn't looked too much into the promo material for CrossWorlds CrossWorlds, so I had no idea as to how hard they were going to go with the references in this game, and Water Palace was the first introductions to how hard this game was going to go on the deep cuts. Visually, it is one of, if not the most beautiful level in this game, at least in my opinion. There are so many levels in this game where white is the predominant color, which can either act to benefit the track or to its detriment, depending on the level, and unfortunately, most of them had been to their detriment, but this is one of the only levels where I can say that the white color just really enhance the experience. You go through so many places in this level. At the beginning of the track, you're entering the palace at the start with these beautiful aqua-colored coral chandeliers, and then diving into a beautiful aquarium, both golden and blue, before emerging out into the sea and arriving back where you started at. It's another level that I want to see properly translated into a 3D Sonic game, as I think this level would be so much fun to explore and traverse in a future title. Not to mention how killer the music is. This is my favorite track in the game, and nothing comes close to it. It's not the original track, which I've seen a lot of people complain about, but honestly, I'm fine because the music we got in its place is so much fun and exhilarating. This was my #1 track for quite a while, but I had to bring it down quite a sizable step because I only think the track design is pretty good at best. Not amazing by any means, but it's something that I think the levels moving forward do a lot better. Donpa Factory is yet another fantastic level that I very much love playing on. It feels weird moving on from Water Palace to talk about this level, considering that I don't really have much to say on Donpa's Factory, other than I just really like everything about it. From the theme to the track design, music, it's a great level, but it's not one that I have any sentimental feeling towards like Water Palace, where it was the level that sold me on buying the game in the first place. You're just gonna have to believe me when I say that this level is great. Holy reused assets, Batman, it's white space! It's no secret that the final Grand Prix in this game was a rush job, as everything surrounding you is reused assets from the game previous, but that obviously doesn't make a track bad in any way. Although a little distracting, I guess at the end of the day, it helps with the cohesion from the game it was based on. I guess there's obviously not an excuse of any kind for it, because the reuse of assets is quite silly and reeks of a rush job, but the actual track that was designed around whitespace itself was very fun, and I think enough was done with the level to warrant its existence. Going into Doom Zone during the third lap and having over half the track change as a result is always a treat and something that I love to see. The All Hail Shadow remix works surprisingly well too. It's so much fun seeing Sonic history as old as less than a year ago get represented in a brand new game. Those are the references I like to see, especially when they're done well. I don't know what kind of crack Sonic Team was on when creating the absolute banger of a track known as Aqua Forest. Out of all the tracks that I would love to see translated the most into a mainline Sonic game, this takes the cake, no contest, and it's a shame that this level will predominantly be stuck in a racer until the end of time. The music has this lovely swashbuckler tone to it as you race along the massive tree bark in a village hidden in the leaves. This level reminds me of Aqua Road from Sonic Forces in the best way possible. It's just that level, but on crack, and done so much better traversing this massive forest with a glass water slide and beautiful wooden huts. This level just hits about every note for me in theme, track design, and music. It's just that good of a stage. Entering our top 3, we have Urban Canyon. This track is on the same level as Donpa Factory, as I don't know if I'll have much to say on it other than telling you to go play the level yourself on supersonic speed, which is where I think most of my enjoyment has come from these windy tracks. Visually, I'd say the level is relatively uninteresting, as it's another level almost completely washed out in its color, but playing on this level in supersonic speed is always so much fun, as you're essentially forced to understand how to control your car perfectly to make sure you cross these turns efficiently. And it was this level that really taught me how to do that. They weren't kidding when they said braking would be required for this mode, but I think it adds such a minor hidden level of depth in the gameplay that rewards you for your mastery over knowing when to hit the gas and to when to let off it. But I think it adds such a minor hidden level of depth in the gameplay that rewards your mastery over when knowing to hit the gas and when to let off it, making this level extremely rewarding to master, which is why it takes the #3 spot. And now we've reached the final 2 levels in the game, that being Wonder Museum and Kronos Island. Both of these levels have something wonderful to offer. Pun entirely intended. And both of these levels could probably be interchanged with one another on a good day. Wonder Museum just has to be one of the most fun and endearing levels to track through for obvious reasons. It's another one of those levels that does references just right, as you would expect nothing less when you would go through a museum to see the history of your world. The track design is fun and heavily rewards you for your mastery of the game's mechanics, as there are quite a few turns that require you to let off the gas at some point. And it's that third lap when everything comes together, as the entire museum goes Ben Stiller mode and comes alive. Now all of a sudden you're going through dinosaur legs, making sure you don't get hit, avoiding cars on the track, looking at Tails' tornado plane as it spins around, and watching the Kronos Island statues come alive. It is truly a remarkable level, and it's up there in Water Palace for me in terms of sentimentality, replayability, as it was another level that showed me that this game could end up becoming so much more than just another standard kart racer. And finally, we have Kronos Island, which takes the top spot for me. I'm not even gonna spend time hiding it. Going through this track for the very first time was a transcendent experience. I can't even begin to explain why, but I will try to do my best anyway. This is the level in which you get introduced to the supersonic speed for the very first time, the highest difficulty in the game, and by far the fastest. This was the difficulty I was looking forward to the most, as of course you want to go fast in a Sonic racing game. Patching that with the dynamic camera, and you have a truly exhilarating experience. As I stated before, I love watching newer Sonic history get translated further into other games, and this level is no different. Yes, the entire map of Kronos was very blatantly reused, which makes the track inside of it look a little silly, knowing that Sonic probably got a comically large bulldozer or two to make way for this track. But besides that, it really does put your drifting skills to the test, especially with the high speeds taken in this level, and not to mention the absolutely wonderful remix that this track sports. Good God, this track has it all. The Kronos Island remix transitioning into I'm Here Revisited, the best version of the song. God, it was absolutely transcendent hearing it for the first time, as it gets your heart pounding and itching to win the race. Kronos Island's music is a perfect example of how music can truly enhance how I feel about the track, considering how exhilarated the music got me every time I'm on the final lap. And there you have it. That is every track ranked in Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. I'm sure this list could change, both depending on the day and however many hours I continue to spend in this game. I've already spent way more than I thought I would, but what do you think about the list? What about your own? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see me rank all of the CrossWorlds that you can go through in this game. My name is Dylonic, and I will see you all in the next video. Take it easy and stay fresh.